Hello you guys, and welcome to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah and I'm super excited to share today's video with you for a couple different reasons. Number one, I love this topic, thinking about 10 things that happen after you've decluttered. We obviously do a lot of focus on the decluttering process itself, and it's one of the ways that can completely transform our lives in a really positive way. But what exactly happens after you declutter? How do you go beyond the clutter and take your life to the next level, really live an intentional life? So we'll talk all about that today. I'm also really excited because this video has a couple special guests, specifically Ron and Stuart Carter, both of which have amazing YouTube channels that unfortunately a lot of people don't know about yet. I personally have found that they give me a lot of value when I watch their videos, and I'm hopeful that you'll get some value out of their tips that they'll provide as well. The first thing that happens after you've decluttered is that your everyday tasks start becoming a lot more manageable. I have found that once you remove some of that extra distraction from your life or space, you actually can focus a lot better and you can accomplish so much more than you would have before. A lot of times, if you've got a cluttered space or cluttered life, it might feel like your mind is being pulled in all of these different directions, and you might focus a little bit of energy on all of those different things or all of the different tasks that you have to do, and it can prevent you from accomplishing the big stuff, the stuff that actually matters to you, those really important tasks that will make a difference in your life or the lives of others. So I have found it's a lot easier to get tasks done, and overall I just get less overwhelmed now that I have a simplified space. Another great thing that happens after you've decluttered is that you're able to focus more on the activities that you actually like. When we have a cluttered life, there's probably a lot of things that you own that take up your time that you don't actually enjoy that much, but you just don't really know that there's other options, or you don't think you have time. After you cut some of that stuff out, then it allows you to add more of the fun things that maybe you wished you had time to do into your actual daily life. This can look like a lot of different things, but I have found that after I removed that extra clutter, then I wanted to add in a lot of these fun activities so I could dive deeper into Abundantly Minimal and making videos for you guys and try to make better videos. Or I was able to pick up dancing again, try out new recipes and feel more inspired. Adding these activities that matter to us is amazing and also really important even if you hadn't planned on it. As you remove things from your space, you want to fill up some of that openness with those things that will bring joy again. Because ultimately it's not about just a life devoid of any excess, it's about filling your life with what matters rather than what doesn't. After you've decluttered, you'll find that future decluttering is a lot easier. I can't even tell you how many times I kept certain items for a while thinking that they were important to me, only to realize later on that they actually weren't important to me, or my thoughts towards them had changed and no longer was it something I needed to keep. Early in the stages, you might not ever think that could be true, but then later on, it gives you new clarity. It's actually sort of like a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it gets. You sort of get stronger at decluttering, and things that you felt so attached to at one point may no longer be as important to you as you move throughout the process. And so these days, it's very easy to declutter in a very rational state of mind most of the time after doing it so much. Now I'd like to pass it over to Ron, who has a couple awesome tips for you guys.
Hey Sarah, I'm really excited to help you bring value around this topic, and I have 3 points that I quickly want to mention, so let's jump right into it. So the first thing that happens after you've decluttered is you start to become aware of the mental and emotional clutter that you're still holding on to. Now, I talk a lot about this on my channel as well, and oftentimes when we think about minimalism, we only associate it with the physical space, our physical clutter. And we forget that we also have emotional and mental clutter that we may still be holding on to. So the best thing you can do after your physical space is clean and clear is to take a step back and really look inside of your heart and your mind and see if there is anything that you're holding on to that you need to let go of. Maybe it's regret or anger, or maybe you've had this deep hurt at some point in your life, or maybe it's doubt. Maybe you have this disbelief in yourself somewhere in there. You need to figure out what that is for you so you can then take an action item, put it into play, and then finally free yourself of that emotional and mental clutter. The second thing on my list is something that I like to call a deeper understanding of self. Now, this is when you've reached that point in your life where you know exactly who you are, you know exactly what you value, you have a clear and defined focus, and you know exactly what path you're traveling on in your life. And when we reach this point, we start to draw in other interests and things that we value, and we start to want to add those to our lives. And the famous question that is always asked when you talk to a minimalist is, are you vegan, or are you zero waste, or do you only wear slow fashion? Questions like that. And not all of us do, but when we choose to do add those things to our lives, it's because we have reached that deeper understanding of self, and we want to add values like that to our lives. So think of a chart, right? Think of a chart, and in the middle of that chart, there's one circle, and in that circle is you, a deeper understanding of self. And branching off from that circle are things like veganism, slow fashion, zero waste, yoga, meditation. Maybe it's starting your own business. And once you reach that deeper understanding of self, once you don't have the stress and the disorganization, the dysfunction in your life, you start to pull in those other values, things like that, to your life that you want to try, that you find valuable, that you want to add to that best version of you. But it's all based on what each of us value as individuals. So what I value is not necessarily going to be the same things that you value. But that's what makes life beautiful, this minimalist journey beautiful, living an intentional life for ourselves beautiful, because we have the opportunity and the option to add the things that add value to us, to our lives, to make it the best life that we want to live. Now, the third thing that happens after you've completely decluttered all aspects of your life is this. Happiness. Now, of course, I understand that happiness is very subjective, and happiness is going to look different for each of us. It's going to look different to me than it does to you. But that's what this journey is all about, reaching a better version of ourselves, reaching an intentional life that we're happy with. And it's just something about not having stress or dysfunction or disorganization in our lives that just makes you smile. And it's something about knowing that you have complete control of you. I really hope that helps you. Peace.
Thank you, Ron. Another one of my tips, which is probably my second favorite, I'm saving my first favorite for at the end of this video. But once you have decluttered, you start to develop more of a nothing to lose mindset. As you find yourself on a minimalist journey and are simplifying your life, you start to have better sense of what matters, and you realize that you don't have anything to lose in terms of physical stuff. You might think about, what if you lost everything in a fire or some sort of disaster, or you had to get up and walk away from your possessions? Now, obviously, we don't want that to happen, but if it did, how would you be affected? I have found that the less stuff I own, the more I feel like I have nothing to lose. Now that I have less stuff, I don't think it would be as difficult to recover compared to before, when I felt like I had a lot of attachment to my stuff and maybe didn't have as clear of an understanding of what actually matters. This nothing to lose mindset can be amazing for our peace of mind and help us just feel a lot less stressed out. It gives us freedom. So that's one of my favorite ones to share. Now I want to turn it over to Stuart, who has a couple more awesome ideas.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about something that I'm passionate about, that I feel deep down. I've had a spiritual practice for some 14 years now. And for me, minimalism's kind of happened in the opposite direction. So first I went into myself and minimized my inner world. And then that reflected itself on the outer world. And I'm going to give you two invitations today to really start having a look at your inner world and what's going on in your life. So number one, you've removed the physical clutter from around you. You've found a sense of visual peace, but that's not where it ends. And we can start looking at the peace in the mind and the peace in the ears. And I'm inviting you today to embrace silence. It's something that so few of us do because we get uncomfortable when we get quiet. What happens is when we turn off the distractions like the TV or the radio or our iPod or any other audible distractions we have, we start to hear that little voice within ourselves. And that can be quite painful at times. It can be uncomfortable. it can be difficult because our little voice starts telling us things that we don't like. It can tell us that we're not good enough. It can remind us of all the terrible things we've done. Sometimes it's really kind to us and it tells us nice things, but sometimes it isn't. And it's only in that silence that we hear that voice. But when we can sit through that and recognize that our thoughts and our feelings aren't us, that we're not identified by those things, then we can let those go. And then we hear an even quieter voice in the silence. And that's the voice of divine guidance. Now, I don't know where you stand on religious grounds, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in the universe, whether you believe in any kind of higher power. But there's something within us, even if it's just our ideal self, that talks in whispers. And we have to get ourselves silent, remove all of those distractions. And when we do that, when we sit in quiet contemplation or quiet meditation, that's when we actually get the direction for our lives that will actually help us to fulfill our full potential. So the step of removing all of our visual clutter, removing those things that sit on our invisible to-do list, disidentifying with our fantasy self that's never actually going to become real. When we've done all that, we can then go deep within and find that quiet voice that, as I say, only speaks in whispers. My second tip is you've done the work now. You've looked at your personal belongings, you've held them, you've decided if they're treasures or if they're useful or if you're sentimentally attached or if they're not bringing you joy. You've done all that hard work. And now it's time to again go within in that quiet that you're going to nurture and look at your habits and your beliefs. Because we've picked up these things over our lives, not for silly reasons. We've been gifted things. We've picked up things that were useful at the time. We've picked up things that we loved at the time. We've picked things up to remember holidays. We've picked up all sorts of physical stuff and we've gone through the process of letting that go. Now it's time to go through the process of habits and beliefs and figure out, are they still serving us? There's no need to beat ourselves up about them or make ourselves wrong or right about any of them. We picked them up for a reason at the time, but now are they serving us? I recently gave up drinking and I realized that it was just a habit, and sure, it was social, sure, I kind of enjoyed it, but actually it took me out of the consciousness that allowed me to perform at my A game. And so that habit, while I recognized its purpose, I'm not saying it's wrong for me or for anyone else. All I'm saying is it doesn't serve me at this time. There are all sorts of beliefs about who we are, about how the world works. We keep pushing against the world sometimes, wishing it were a different way, when in fact all we need to do is look at our beliefs and say, perhaps this is something that served me while I was younger. This is something that served me in different circumstances. Maybe this belief isn't serving me anymore, and it's time to let it go. So habits and beliefs, I think, are two things that we can also minimize, probably after we've looked at our stuff. So I'll leave it there. Thank you once again for listening. I hope you've found these helpful, and back over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Stuart. For my last tip and my personal favorite, one of the best things that happens after you declutter is that you're able to live a lot more in the present. When we are in a very cluttered space and we're surrounded by stuff, I think it traps us in the past. Each item might have a certain memory. Maybe it's a sentimental thing, or you've just used it for a long time. Maybe it brought you financial guilt. You spent a lot on it, so you were just holding on to it. And that all happened in the past. And the more stuff we have, the more it traps us in the past, because you're trying to live your everyday life, but nearly everything around you can hold you back into those earlier stages. While I'm not saying we have to get rid of everything we own, and while there's definitely some benefits in keeping select sentimental pieces, if we live a life with less stuff, we're able to focus a lot more on the present and to some degree the future as well. Rather than be overwhelmed by your stuff, you're able instead to enjoy the moment and the simple pleasures of a day a lot more than the stuff. You're able to have time and energy for loved ones in your life, other people that you care about. Being able to give them time, it allows you to be more spontaneous, and you're more easily able to create those little moments of joy and fun than if you were burdened by extra stuff. It's really tough in today's society to be fully present, and as much as I'd like to say I am present all the time, there's definitely some times where I'm thinking ahead or thinking in the past. I find myself more so thinking in the future rather than the past, but it definitely still takes up some of my time. But you spend so much more time in the present after you've dealt with your stuff. So I'm hopeful that will be the case for you as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me today in this video about what happens after you've decluttered. Once again, thank you to Ron and Stuart for joining me. I really hope you guys will check out their channels just because I know personally they have given me a lot of value, and I bet a lot of you guys would feel the same. So you can subscribe to those channels below. And I've got another video I think you guys will like right up here. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.